Here's what you can expect on this video. The houses of all of the nodes between 4 astrologers. Each one of us as astrologers, myself, Joe, Meg, and Caitríona, will be from multiple countries. 4 different countries contribute one house a piece, helping you understand the nodal axis. Do remember that our memberships are always running, and we're currently doing the North Node, South Node axis, help you understand the delusion and fated path, as well as the imagination and where you're being asked to separate from your past life. And if you haven't seen any of us and caught it live, you will also catch them on replay, but it's only within our membership. So check out our membership. The link will be down in the description. Other than that, this is a collaboration that I took a tremendous amount of joy in and shared so many perspectives. You do have your timestamps. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up and the likes button. I love you. I'll see you soon.
The nodes through the houses. And I feel that, you know, when we're looking at the nodes, because I'm sure some viewers might be just interested in the nodes and their own personal birth charts. This is my little gift to the viewers, you know, like we could shed a bit of light on the nodes. The reason I didn't choose the signs is because there are too many signs, and I do feel like the houses are more relevant anyway at the end of the day. Well, I mean, where the energy is happening. So would you all agree? Yeah. I mean, like, the house placement of the node is what I'm saying. I feel is more important than the actual zodiac sign. Sorry, Joe. Yeah. So like for North Node in the first house, I mean, for me, I always feel like people with the North Node in the first house, they are wonderful mediators. They are great at relating to other people, but they're not so good at taking their own initiative. They can sometimes be a little bit codependent, find it hard to do things on their own. And in this lifetime, they are being challenged to kind of move out of that comfort zone, to move more towards self-reliance and finding out who they are independent of other people, in a nutshell. So who would like to do North Node in the second house? Obviously, South Node in the seventh. I'll go to Meg.
I'm on it. I believe that with the second house, one of the key things is for them to check in with their tolerance. You know, when I say tolerance, like South Node in the 8th for them, they really come from a place where they never had power on their own. Their power was always among the elites, always among people who are high in status and position, considering like the Sun in Scorpio's 10th house ruled. And it's one of these things where with the North Node in the second house, you might have seen that a couple of years ago. We just went through North Node and Taurus. It was about learning that they've tolerated so much that it actually is now about them moving towards reverse engineering that tolerance and essentially like fueling their own self-worth in the process. And so it's a difficult topic for them to really value themselves enough to say, look, I'm not gonna rapidly and immediately merge with another person just to become more powerful, but that's what I'm used to. And so it just takes them time in the second house, a long time, right? We're talking Taurus, the slowest sign, personal opinion. We're talking the mountain where the sun continuously comes around to see the mountain every day. The mountain doesn't move. But again, the sun comes around, the most powerful thing in our solar system. And that's about them giving that affection to themselves, that them giving that and finding their own ambition separate from other people. And again, one of the more complicated things for them, but the most necessary.
Yeah, I love that. And I would agree, Taurus, anything with Taurus, you got to take your time with it. It's about slow and steady. North Node in the third house, Joe.
Yeah.
South Node ninth house.
North Node in the third house is obviously, it deals with communication and stuff. But what I think they deal with the most is communication with themselves, right? Because with the South Node in the ninth house, they're so used to communicating with, higher ideologies, philosophies. It's almost like that monk that's just been lodged away in a, some type of like mountain temple or mountain monastery where they're just working on books, working on texts. And then everybody comes out 300 years later and they're just like, oh my God, look at this tome. And they don't realize that person was out there communicating with their dreams, communicating with spirits, and they never really communicated with other people or self. So that not only do they kind of need to learn how to communicate at a baseline level and not fear small talk per se, but they really need to understand how to actually express an idea fully to themselves instead of just visualizing the topic or dealing with a certain understanding, right? So it's interesting to kind of see a lot of people in having that North Node in the third house, because it's almost like they have a self-inflicted block on their throat chakra and they don't necessarily know how to take it off nor want to take it off some type of way. So that's what I see.
I love that idea of the block in the throat chakra. I think that is so true for North Node in the third house. And I also feel that North Node in the third house, they have a lot of escapism tendencies. This running away, traveling, avoiding what's right and wrong. It's like The Alchemist, where, if anybody's familiar with The Alchemist, I'm sure you are, but if you've read it, if you haven't read it, spoiler alert, he goes searching for treasure all over, very far away, only to find it's at home. I always feel like that's North Node third house, South Node ninth house. North Node fourth house. Meg, it's your turn now.
I felt personally attacked by that third house because I'm from a third house in North Node.
Is that...
No, it's spot on. That is exactly it. It's like share the knowledge you know versus learning more. Stop learning more and just share what you know. And the fourth house is home, family, that balance between work, how you're seen outside. It's really about like knowing yourself within yourself, being okay with yourself, not having external validation, not having like, somebody else outside of you telling you who you are. It's about coming home to yourself, your roots, your own inner security. Maybe it's like, uncovering stuff about your ancestors or your lineage. But really, just being at peace with knowing your worth versus like having somebody outside of you saying something about you.
Yeah, and I feel as well with the North Node fourth house, South Node 10th house, these people are always super successful, they've the outward trappings of success, and then they find they're just not fulfilled, like they're empty, and they're coming back to self, they're coming back to, just domestic life and just finding a home within themselves. They're like, does any of this matter? North Node in the fifth house, like I feel that this one with the South Node in the 11th house, it's about like, you go through the first half of your life, maybe like blending in, hiding in a crowd, not being seen, being part of the collective. And then you move towards like being more creative, being more childlike, shining, self-expression. I guess it might be a block. Maybe would it be the solar plexus, Joe? Would you say fifth house, North Node?
I mean, it could be. It depends on how you kind of interact with that and where you extract your energy.
Yeah.
So technically, yes, it could be the solar plexus, but think about it this way. Is it physical? Is it spiritual? Is it energetic? Like it's the stomach? Do they just hate food? Do they not look in the mirror? It could go a lot of ways,
Yeah.
Or do they hate being creative?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like North Node in fifth house as well has to kind of get into the energy of being childlike. And if you look at children, they have no inhibitions. They're just playing. Like you can see boys, they'll dress up and they'll be in role and they'll do whatever. It's like children are having fun. And North Node in the fifth house, a huge element of that is like learning to have fun and play and make mistakes. And that's what creativity is about. North Node in the sixth house. Pernell, you want to take this one?
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah. North Node in the sixth house is about coming into your body and realizing that you can't fit together the themes of every reality and alternate timeline dimension and parallel universe without routine. Because with the South Node in that 12th, there was no physical body. Your entire life was about escaping the physical reality. And so you found God, great, but now you found even compassion for all things, animals, life, trees, a house that was built by bricks. And even though it doesn't make sense, but you're a part of the bricks itself. And the sixth house is about realizing like that in the physical world, that's too much for a human being to sustain without routines. It's impossible. It's just too much to try to stitch together the fabrics of every alternate timeline. And so with the routines, this person starts to realize how critical it is to stick to a plan and change without fault, and realize that's the only way you'll be able to manage the chaos. Because otherwise the chaos will swallow you. I mean, you're trying to live the life of the ether on earth. And that's, again, impossible without your physical body coming into some sense of strength. And I find that with these charts, these people have very weak physical bodies. Their body is very physically weak. They have to exercise. They have to strength train, because the easiest thing it is for them to do is to dissipate and wither away and literally lose form itself, because they are coming from a formless, I can't even say being, but just essence. And so it's about learning to take risk and realizing that, again, you know, I love this term. It's the great work of stitching together the seams of reality.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. I think one of our viewers says, and the importance of your inner thoughts shaping your external body and the effects of thoughts on the physical world. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like North Node in the 6th house, South Node 12th house, I also feel they're very psychically and spiritually open. You know, they do need to ground themselves. They do need to have that good spiritual hygiene of like bringing themselves down to earth. You know, because they're almost too open. You know, like the as above, so below. So then we're looking at North Node in the 7th house. Joe, you want to take this one?
Yes, I do. So,
is this your one? Is this your personal North Node?
Oh, no.
You look so excited.
No, I just thought of a tagline, but then I forgot it and came up with another one that was similar about 3 times already. But yeah, so basically North Node in the 7th house is holding people to such a high standard of perfection without ever defining it, right? Because with South Node in the 1st house, you're probably naturally good at figuring out how to make yourself look good. You know, you always have your optimal angle, and you're probably pretty good at, you know, manifesting a lovely aura, and you're probably pretty good at being, you know, relatively strong and pretty good at anything you almost try, right? So with this, it's like they almost want to have people match their energy in such a way, but they put this roadblock on creating partnerships that don't exactly suit the experience, rather suiting them, except they don't ever define it that way, right? They're always like no one's like, I don't want to say they're taking it always from the perspective, unless they had a lot Aries placement there, of no one's ever good enough for me. But I feel like they subconsciously hold people to certain standards that, one, they didn't either express to that person or they didn't define to themselves, right? So it's kind of like this dog chasing its tail experience of where they're always in and out of relationships, whether it be for business, pleasure, or just going through experiences altogether. And it kind of takes them on a wild ride of making a lot of connections without the necessary depth that they would need to fully learn their lesson.
Yeah,
I think it's also like independence, like almost like, I won't trust you. I don't want, you know, I don't want your support. I don't want your help. Like, you know, it's kind of like learning to be able to ask for help.
Yeah, I think the North Node in the 7th house really has to learn as well that they don't have to do everything on their own, even though they're able to do everything on their own. They don't have to, not in this lifetime. They're learning, you know, how to relate, how to compromise, and as well that how to, like, they have a very strong sense of self, as Joe said, and they take it for granted that everyone else does. But, you know, a lot of us don't have a strong sense of self. We're still kind of discovering who we are. But North Node in the 7th house, South Node 1st house, they do have they're born with a very strong sense of who they are, and they're very self-oriented already. So it's this learning to consider the other, and to learn how to be a relational partner, I guess, in work, in friendship, not just in, I guess, like platonic, everything, not just romantic. North Node in the 8th house, I mean, I feel that this one, is an unusual one. It's kind of a murky one. I feel a lot of it has to do with surrendering. A lot of it has to do with kind of overcoming fears around intimacy, overcoming fears around being vulnerable, like learning to like merge with someone else, learning to share, like helping others through this merging. And I do feel whenever I see the North Node in the eighth house, this is just anecdotally, I've seen it in the charts of a lot of people who work in the occult and who work in research and who work in, you know, kind of like tarot or astrology, all different kind of things, or trauma-based work. But maybe you guys have something to add to that.
Yeah, the first thing, trust is like the first word that comes to mind with the eighth house North Node. It was like learning to trust, emotional intimacy, sex, acceptance of death, like, you know, not being scared, fear, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and I also have noticed North Node in the eighth house, they often come, not always, but they come from like wealthy, affluent backgrounds or privileged backgrounds where, like, you know, they could have had like a lot of money, things like that. I've just noticed that axis in general, the second and eighth house axis, you know, when the nodes are there. North Node in the ninth house. Meg, do you want to take this one?
So this is what I'm naturally good at. my South Node no, so I think the ninth house is like, yeah, it's travel, it's expansion, it's understand, you know, like changing your mind, changing your beliefs, learning new things, you know, learning from different cultures, different backgrounds. Yeah, any excuse to travel is what I would say. Like, it's the AstroCartography dream, right?
Yeah, and I do think like the North Node, if the North Node is in the ninth house, there can be like this someone that is the perpetual lifelong learner who's doing all these little short courses. They're still stuck in maybe the South Node in the third house, but they never take on one big, long, expansive, you know, like course of higher wisdom. And it's important for them to kind of, yeah, they'll develop that big picture thinking, but I do think it's important for them to do something related to like faith or higher wisdom, or like definitely go and live in another country for a bit. I think that is a, you know, a prerequisite. And I think it happens, you know, like, I mean, we alluded to this at the start of our discussion. You know, your node sort of brings you where you're meant to go anyway. It's not like you have to like work with it that actively. I often see these people are already abroad, like they're expats, you know, like yourself, Meg. But, you know, like this is part of this axis, I guess, this third and ninth axis. Then North Node in the 10th house. I mean, Joe and Pernell, do you want to fight over this? Because Joe, this is your nodal axis.
Yeah, I mean, we can give both of our perspectives if that
Yeah,
makes
I'd love that.
Yeah, so basically with North Node in the 10th house, it's like it's a weird relationship with status and almost stereotypical success. Like, you kind of start off with like the counterculture aspects of understanding, like, man, I don't want to be an academic, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do this stuff. And some weird way on the back end, it's like you almost get very lucky with your home life and your family life, and they often like support you and gift you what you need while simultaneously pushing you towards the same thing that you don't want. So it's an experience of really, really getting lucky to where you're like, oh, I just dropped out of college, what am I going to do with my life? It's like, well, you can come home, and then, you know, maybe you have a Virgo parent that's like, but you got to pay rent, you know? So it's a unique experience of where
This sounds very personal.
Yeah.
well,
Are we talking about
but
I love the anecdotes. Keep going.
Long story. But yeah, so it's a unique thing because eventually they discover a lot of intuitive systems of how to gain that success that they desire while still having that like comfortable, almost go with the flow lifestyle per se. Because, you know, when it comes to Cancer in the home, they always want to be comfortable with their status, which is something that's a very unique thing, because eventually they create a lot of status that is your home, which is a very, very it's a weird experience of how creating and going through all that work to actually build themselves up is really just building the shell for Cancer in a way to where everywhere, like, the world can truly be their oyster. So that's how I see it.
Did you find, you know, with this nodal axis that you have a deep longing to retreat and to not be seen at times? Do you find it hard to put yourself out there?
Like, yes, technically, but I learned just due to like having my like Gemini sun and Scorpio ascendant that I can be in public and not be seen. So like, yeah, but no, it's a weird thing. You know, the whole chart makes it complicated.
I know. Pernell, what do you think about the North Node in the 10th house?
Roast me.
I'm sorry, Joe. This is the mafia axis to me.
Go in.
This is the mafia axis where it's like Godfather, right? It's emotional overreaction to control. It's using moodiness to control. So if you try to force them to set goals and go off and mature itself, maturing is the hardest thing for this axis, I find. It's like they really struggle to mature because they come from a clan. They come from a sect, something that they belong to, and they didn't have to be in charge. And that's the thing. In the clan, there's one leader, maybe the husband and the wife. But even if so, one of them is hidden and one is the real head. There's only one head. And so everybody else falls in the snake's body, if you will. And so as a part of that, they don't have a lot of power. And they also don't have a lot of experience of stepping out into the world because they only have been in their clan. So not having power, the only power they have is basically being, excuse me, ladies, a moody woman in a sense, even if it's a male.
Oh, no. Oh,
And through that, right? And through that moodiness, they will try to get the person to react to basically stay inactive. Like it's a very non-action orientated axis where they're forced to act eventually. But the hardest thing is that they don't understand. They don't act out publicly, quote unquote, outside of the family's clan and unit because their safety is in the manipulation of others on an emotional level. And you can't emotionally manipulate somebody in the public world so easily as you could as somebody in the family because you know the family's secrets. And you can threaten them with those secrets because you know everything private about their life. You live with them. You saw the infidelity. You saw the incest. You saw all kinds of weird stuff in the family dynamic. And so as a part of that, that doesn't translate and life doesn't reward you to do that and manipulate people in the professional world. It doesn't reward you. That's the 10th house part of integrity, where if you try the same things, Capricorn binds you. And it will give you that status and you will find it temporarily there and then you'll lose it whenever Saturn return happens, whenever any kind of Saturnian aspect happens on a global scale where it's not about you at an individual level and you can't be moody with Saturn and get your way. It's just not going to work.
We didn't expect you to roast him that hard.
I told you I've been running.
You didn't know I'm back, Meg.
Membership. Like I've been doing this in my membership, so it's like this is my current focus. So I'm not.
I want to add like some positive spin to it because I feel like this is like my
for our viewers. Yeah, we'll add in some positive stuff.
I think a North Node in the 10th house. Yes, you come from a protected, supported family, but you are meant to create your own legacy. Like that is your destiny is to create something completely different to what you were raised in. So your reputation, your legacy, you're a master of your own fate and not restricted by whatever your family told you was right or wrong, mafia style or not. Like, you're creating your own gang. Create your own gang, do your own freaking deals. It is about you showing up and being strong.
She's 1,000% right. To add in the positivity as well. It's like what's most positive I find about this axis is whatever you work for, you will get. Yeah. That's the other side of Saturn.
100%.
Like whatever you work for, you will obtain. It likely won't happen in your timeline, but it will happen in a timeline that is literally time lapsed, right? Like you can look in your astrology chart and find and discover like when will this happen, period. Like that's possible. And so that's one of the beautiful things. The other thing is you do mature. To me, this is the positive aspect of this. Like you mature, you're forced to mature. Life will make you mature. And so it's Saturn, right? Like Saturn isn't mean. to me is not mean at all. It's actually, I grew up on a Saturn line in AstroCartography, for example. Like I grew up on a Saturn line.
Me too.
And it's the best thing for me. Like, but like part of why it was so beautiful for me is like I come from more of a Piscean past life where order and structure was managed for me. Right? Living in monasteries and things like that. Like I didn't have to cook my food. I didn't have to say when I was going to clean. I was told when I was going to sweep. And so growing up on the Saturn line on those positives, it's like I grew up in a strict household. I grew up with way more rules and regulations than all of my siblings. Right? I am the oldest in that family dynamic. And so as a part of it, it rewarded me with, I live abroad. I have for 7 years and I run my own company. These for me are the positives. Right? And that's me growing up on a Saturn line. So if I'm trying to relate that to the 10th house. And so for me, it's like, it's the same thing. Like I earned what I worked for, right? And that, to me, these are some of the more positives. It's about maturity. I really feel like it creates a very, very mature person. And you really do get to create the life that you want without other people.
Over time.
Over time. Over time. And then you even find the intimacy. And that's the key I find with this is like, that 4th house part, it wants intimacy, like deeply. It wants intimacy. It wants care. It wants love. And I find that as long as you seek that part in the 10th house, life does escape you on the intimacy. But when you go ahead and you do it on your own and you basically learn to mature and become intimate with yourself, then you find somebody else who's done the same. And then you pair together. That's when the love story kind of forms together. And it's not just love in with relationships, but it's also like the intimacy in your career. Like they want intimacy in their career, and then it's important to understand like not everybody wants to be intimate with you in the professional field. A lot of people just want to go to work and go home. They just want to make money and go home. They don't want to be intimate. So like that's a warning I say for the 10th house where that could become very painful. But it's not painful if you just choose to be your own boss and realize that's okay. It's not personal.
And I would add that 4th and 10th house axis, you're often called into leadership, you know, with this one as well, North Node, 10th house. And as well, I've heard it said that, you know, when the North Node, like when the South Node is in the 4th house, like you really grew your soul in your previous lifetime. So in this lifetime, like you're here with this really old soul. But it's about like getting out of your comfort zone and putting it out there and sharing that wisdom. And yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. But we don't want to give the 4th house, 10th house axis too much time now. We don't want to be unfair to the others. So let's move along to North Node in the 11th house. I'm going to give this to the Aquarius, of course. Meg, North Node in the 11th house. What do you see this as?
I see the 11th house is finding your tribe or finding your people, aligning to like a cause or a community or a group, coming down from the mountain and being with others in some way. And
I've often, I don't know if people would agree with me with this one, but I often feel South Node in the 5th house, these people were often famous in a past life. And, you know, they come into this life really gifted, really passionate, really creative, and they want to keep shining and being like, you know, famous in a singular sense. But it's like they're meant to be part of something bigger than themselves, moving towards the North Node in the 11th house. They're meant to be part of a community effort, a group effort, and like social activism, I think is an incredible thing to move towards if you have the North Node in the 11th house, because these people can be incredible, you know, when they are working with groups.
Yeah.
That's just something I've observed.
What are their hopes and dreams and vision for the future?
Exactly.
Like, in alignment with others. Yeah, finding those people that are going to help their cause.
Yeah, and bringing those talents with them, like not abandoning them. So the North Node in the 12th house, South Node in the 6th house, Joe. It's a biggie. It's a biggie.
Yeah. That's the first thing that comes to mind is spiritually rough. You're more familiar with nightmares rather than dreams. Much as you get sent to bed and they're like, remember, don't let and you're really leaning hard in when you say, if they do, I'll bite them back. It's a unique childhood per se, because I would say a lot of things start there, of where you kind of have those experiences of where you have to like you're used to working hard. You're kind of brought up working. Maybe you have like, you know, a little bit of a job, like cutting grass, or something like that, and you're quite used to
100%.
things happen. But it also, I feel like it comes with a lot of harsh parenting per se, like maybe even like a difficult paternal figure, of where if you had a bad dream or something, they would be the type of parent, they would attract the type of experience to where they would maybe get thrown in a closet and say, you want to deal with the monsters? Go see the monsters. And then after that, maybe they don't have a fear of monsters anymore, but it's still quite a difficult understanding and, you know, experience to face that level of sub and unconscious experiences, right? So when it comes to having all of that, you know, energy in the 12th house, these people may grow up to be afraid of like the subconscious and the psychic realm. Like when they, you know, grow up and they finally turn to be, maybe they're like 18 and they're going to the shore to go experience what you call it, like seniors week or whatever, and they have their girl and they're walking on the boardwalk and they go see a psychic. Maybe they would have some type of traumatic reaction, whether they actually express it or not, and really be like, oh, you want to spend your money on psychics? Why would you do that? And in reality, they're actually getting triggered through those experiences of every time they actually dibbled and dabbled into the subtle emotional realms or the spiritual realms per se, they were met with aggression and they were met with being able to face their fear, and they never really had that kind of subconscious veg time that a kid normally does, where they're like, no, you know, imagination. What about like experiencing, you know, sun signs and rainbows and creating cotton candy from clouds? They don't know anything about that. They haven't really had that time to just sit and breathe because they were either working or being forced to face their fears in some type of way. So I kind of see them as having a delayed onset spiritual experience per se, to where they're like, yeah, I know I've been an Aquarius my entire life, or yeah, I know I've been a Capricorn my entire life, but I don't care what that means. And then by the time they're 45, they may approach the energy and the idea of astrology and be like, oh, that's an earth sign. I'm quite practical.
Yeah.
So it's from my perspective, it's pretty weird. But
Yeah,
you know,
I think what you said, like I find that very powerful what you said. Like Jeremy Renner, the Hollywood actor, he's got his North Node in the 12th house. He was in a horrific, you know, accident with a snowplow, you know, broke all the bones in his body. And I just think, you know, they say Saturn rejoices in the 12th house. And we do know Saturn is the bone breaker, you know. But like he broke something like ridiculous, like 42 bones in his body. And then like because he's an Aries rising, Meg, he you know, he defied all the odds. Mars in the 8th house, you know, was walking again really quickly. You know, this guy's got 9 lives. But like he has done all this work where he's of higher service. You know, he's doing, how would I describe it? It's like a social activism work. He's trying to better the lives of children that are, you know, maybe like less privileged than he was growing up. This kind of work, he's going around America doing a documentary about it. A lot of philanthropy. And I guess that is his way of accessing, you know, he's this Aries Martian guy. Maybe he's not spiritual, but he's sort of like moving towards his North Node in the 12th house of being of higher service. And that you can be sure that after what happened to him, he definitely believes in a higher power now. Maybe he didn't beforehand, but now he believes in a higher power. But like, I think it's so interesting what Joe said, that kind of traumatic experience of like, you know, thinking that maybe there's nothing out there. We just have one life, and, you know, not believing in anything and running away from that because maybe there's like this kind of fear of transcendence, fear of the unconsciousness, fear of working with things that like that have no boundaries, that we can't really define.
Yeah, I would also say 6th house is like acts of service, and 12th house is like behind the scenes. So it's like maybe doing like taking yourself on a spiritual retreat behind and working behind the scenes, philanthropy. You know, you don't have to be the face of the organization, but you're helping in a different way.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of clients that are in the spiritual, like in sort of spiritual fields with a North Node in the 12th house. It's like accepting gifts that you have, you know, for trusting the universe and seeing it help you and support you, and kind of like,
and like these people are already very grounded, Meg, would you agree? You know, people with their South Node in the 6th house, they're super grounded. And like, it's like what Pernell was saying earlier about North Node in the 6th house, they have a weak body, or it's like, you know, North Node in the 12th house, you actually have probably a very physically strong body. You know, you've got great bodily awareness. You know, you might be quite disciplined. You might be someone who goes to the gym a lot, but
Yeah.
can you like learn meditation? Can you learn to, can you transcend the physical body, I guess?
Yeah.
Pernell is nodding, so that's a good sign. Guys, I want to just say to our viewers, if you have any questions, you know, I'm sorry, I should have said this maybe in our little promotional ad, pop them in the chat or in the question box before we finish up. I'm so sorry we got cut off halfway through, guys, but this chat has just been so fascinating. It's given me so much food for thought, and it's really made me rethink a lot of the nodal axes, because all of your, you know, your views you shared were just so fascinating to me, and I absolutely love, you know, I've got Jupiter and Pisces. I absolutely love soaking all this up. Sorry, Joe?
Same.
Same.
Actually,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I just think, yeah, it's just like, I love it all. I can't get enough, you know, Jupiter and Pisces. It's like, give it all of it. So is there anything you guys would like to promote that, you know, is happening in your businesses right now? Pernell, I might start with you.
Membership is my main focus. It's always shifting. One of the key things that you can expect is there's always going to be Tai Chi, breath work, Qigong right in the beginning. And I'm always linking them back to organs in your body that link to the zodiac signs that we're actually discussing. So for me, it's like my life just led me down a path of like ridiculous passion when it comes to healing the inhealable. You have cancer, I'm telling you, without a doubt, it can be healed. And I have no doubt, not even a little bit. And it's about teaching those things, like literally through bringing the incorporeal into the corporeal reality. So membership is my main focus. Other than that, a spring equinox, if you're like an aspiring entrepreneur, March 23rd, we're running an 8-week online program. A lot of what I just said is going to be included into it, but that for me is just always included, because I don't believe in teaching you something and not actually giving you the skills, right? Like I'm not going to just give you the negative side and not show you the positive outcome on the other way to like applicably do it. So that's happening later, more for entrepreneurs.
That sounds amazing. Can I be very nosy and ask, like, would you feel comfortable sharing your own nodal axis, given, you know, what you're so passionate about sharing right now with your clients?
For me, the question is which one, right? Because like,
yeah,
I'm Vedic astrology, so there's like 25 charts. So
well, what one are you resonating with right now, we'll say?
Sagittarius, North Node. Sagittarius, North Node, South Node, Gemini. That's the one I'm resonating with currently. Last week, it was my Virgo, North Node, South Node, Pisces, right? Like it changes. Like I'm a study guy. So
I can definitely see both of them in you anyway, you know, for sure. I think they're amazing offerings you have. And if anybody isn't following Pernell, go on his page and check them all out. Joe, how about you? What are you offering right now?
Right now, I'm really leaning into my fixed star readings. So I'm actually going to be doing a whole series that I'll be putting on TikTok and YouTube, where I'm going to go through all of the 88 constellations and just give a brief astrology on all of them. So in my fixed star readings, I take them from a very spiritual perspective, because from everything I've learned, the exact star that angles your moon sign with just your regular chart is the star that you're incarnating with, or where you kind of came from in a past life. Okay. Now, if that isn't exactly where people came from in a past life, I do see it is very closely to their purpose of incarnation during this lifetime, because with that, you know, energy of the moon and basically being the only actual celestial body in your chart that can make decisions based off the vibration that you felt at a certain time, identifying what degree connects with the exact star at your point of incarnation shows you the mentality that you're carrying with this lifetime, as well as your purpose through that. So it's like you're basically bringing this light to shine on Earth. So,
and this ties in so beautifully with your South Node in the 4th house. You have so much wisdom of the moon to already share. You know, you're probably just, you're bringing it from your previous lifetime and you're putting it out there for the collective. I love it. That's amazing.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm offering right now. And I'm kind of doing it as a lap to totally encapsulate how I basically see your solar system, the system your soul goes into. So it'll start with that. And then after that, I'm going to start really leaning into the astrological chakras and how it kind of creates your vessel.
Amazing. So, yeah. Cool. And Meg, what about you?
So I do AstroCartography. If you missed the beginning, but AstroCartography is my jam. Let's book your next trip and plan your next holiday or relocate. That's a kind of a standard offer. I did launch like a Uranus reading where it just looks at reclaiming your inner rebel.
I love it.
Speaking as my Aquarius sun, like, you know, where are we trying to evolve or like revolutionize ourselves, be our own rebels. So that's a little recorded reading, and we look at the placement of your Uranus in house and the aspects, and then also the astrocartography. So how to shift your energy going to a Uranus line. But yeah, and then Chiron is another big one that I really, really enjoy. I have a Chiron mini series, which is like a video series you can watch and learn about all Chiron runes and understanding where your core wound is, where your family core wound is, where your heart, you know, your partner's core wound is, and sort of how to help heal or be aware of those triggers. But yeah.
This is so Pluto and Aquarius, because all of our offerings are so different. Right now, on like, we're all so authentic and doing our own thing, which I think, you know, the way there's so much, I guess, South Node and Libra, I feel like the world has been saturated with so many people copying each other's work. North Node and Aries, it's like all of us just doing our own thing, and like this is what is like attracting clients, is that you're being your authentic self. I missed that there, probably with my eyes closed. But on my own page, I'm offering I guess the thing I'm pushing at the moment is my AstroExpress service, because I get booked out for months with the long readings, and I do work with trans-Neptunians, I work with fixed stars, I work with asteroids, and if you're feeling stuck, I often say, you know, just book in for an AstroExpress reading and let me see what's going on for you and just maybe give you a bit of guidance. So yeah, I mean, guys, I absolutely love this chat. I hope we can get together again soon. Actually, the energy flowed really well between us all. I guess it's all the air and the fire, and of course we got a bit of water too in here, so it was absolutely beautiful. So I don't think we have any questions, but yeah, I just want to thank you all so much for joining me and for bearing with me through this process. Joe, are you saying TikTok is a better medium for this?
For multi-guest live? Oh yeah. You can have like 8 people on there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and are all of you on TikTok? Meg, you on TikTok?
I am, but I'm not as big as you guys. Yeah, I'm there.
I don't think I'm that big on TikTok.
Hey, if you're booked out, who cares?
Pernell, are you on TikTok?
I downloaded it like 2 days ago.
Oh my God, that's an omen. I mean, if that isn't an omen. Well, you're on TikTok. I mean, I think all these different platforms, the more the merrier, you know, let's try them all. And I mean, if it is a better platform for going live, less glitchy, I'm here for it, you know. So thank you so much for that, Joe, for that suggestion.
You can actually put like charts and like backgrounds on the actual live.
Yes, I saw that, because there's some amazing astrocartography stuff going on over on TikTok, Meg, I've noticed, you know, just lives. So yeah, I think it's another platform we have to conquer.
I have one question. Is it a part of Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram? Is it part of that network, or is it separate?
TikTok?
No, it's separate.
Like, you know, like Chinese government app.
Yeah. I mean,
we don't stop this now.
We need to be careful. No, we don't. Miss MZ could be watching this. No, it's not. It's not owned by Mr. Zuck. Mr. Zuckerby doesn't own it. But it is. I do know, like, just from speaking to other astrologers, that like it is heavily censored as well. So I mean, you know, I don't know why astrology needs to be censored, but I guess, you know, Pluto and Aquarius, it might be a bit threatening to people, I guess. Who knows?
Well,
so I guess that's why.
well,
sorry, Joe. Oh, go ahead. Who wants to go first?
I got something quick.
I was gonna say, if Joe said what he said, that is this actually Chinese government owned, then I didn't know that, step one. But what's very interesting about that, they don't give and do astrology, so that would make sense. Like they don't, like everyone in Asia, like in India, for example, you get your birth chart at birth, but they don't do it in China because they understand the power of it, and you can't control 1 billion people who know themselves.
Yeah, it is incredibly empowering. Incredibly. Joe, did you want to add something before we finish?
Yeah, I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? Censorship wise, you'll be fine. Just don't like go crazy on conspiracy stuff, and you'll be all right. But
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
like I go live with this one guy who always gets like banned for saying time. I'm just like, no, this is gonna happen. Just save it.
Yeah,
But
I got an Instagram shadow ban before myself, and I was just doing Lionel Messi's birth chart. I don't know what I said, but it was obviously highly offensive to the people in charge. I got a 28-day shadow ban. I actually feel like it's a badge I wear. I'm so proud of my shadow ban.
yeah.
So provocative.
I remember what I was gonna say. Yeah. With Pluto and Aquarius, it's what's really giving this energy of actually having a battle between the different social media apps, which is why you may notice that follower count and subscriber counts mean absolutely nothing because they're each battling for each individual video, which is why each one is giving like organic reach. So as long as you know how to play the game, it's like it really doesn't matter for what
That is so true. Any content creators listening, guys, it is a battle of the social media apps going forward for Pluto and Aquarius. And on that note, I will say good night and good afternoon and good evening to everyone who joined us. It was absolutely amazing. I will save this part of the live. Apologies that the first part got lost, but you know, it is what it is. Maybe it wasn't meant to be put out there in the collective. I believe in that these things happen for a reason. All that's left for me to say is that astrology is complicated, but if you follow us, it doesn't have to be. Bye, everyone.
Bye.